Alan Coyne with University Communications is helping us jumpstart this program. We will also have a May session that's going to be held online, focusing on generational communications and how to communicate with people from various generations and best practices. So that is on May 30th. I'm pretty sure. Oh, the 28th, May 28th. So that's coming up in May, and I will send all of you who are joining us information about that. And also we'll send a recap survey so you can provide information about how this session went and what's most useful for you and what we can do to change it in the future. So to give a little bit of information on Alan, he's a web strategist with University Communications, which means that he is responsible for university level digital marketing initiatives, including websites, digital advertising, data analytics. Many of you may know him from his Day of Giving, UTM information, and the university calendar. He has background in web development, content strategy, and previously helped manage a website with millions of active users and advertising partners in the technology industry. Since joining UComm, Alan has been leading the charge to help elevate and standardize the department's data analytics and reporting capabilities. So thanks so much, Alan, for helping us start our new Zoom Life on CALS Comm workshop. And everybody, please, if you would, if you have questions to come up as we are going, add them to the chat box. You can either send them directly to me or to Alan or to the whole group. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Janine. Hey, everybody, I'm Alan, and I will be subjecting you to some analytics knowledge today, for which I apologize in advance. Like Janine said, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will try to monitor while presenting. And Janine, if you wouldn't mind helping me keep an eye on the questions. And I see we have some people who are joining late, which is fine, fashionably late. So Janine, if you could help me keep an eye on making sure people are added and bring my attention to any chats. There are no such thing as a stupid question in my book, but if you prefer, you can message me directly and I will answer the question for the group anonymously without, shaming you publicly. Another thing that I just wanted to say off the bat is these are stressful times, I know, for everybody, and I don't want this presentation to be a source of stress at all for anybody. So if you have any, I know some folks are sometimes have some reservations about this analytics type stuff, but there will be no quizzes. I'm not going to force you to do activities. I'm not even taking attendance. Janine might be taking attendance, I don't know. But I'm not going to be taking attendance. And, I also want this to be useful for folks who have zero analytics background. And I also hopefully will figure out a way to make this useful for people who do have some analytics background already. So I think the bulk of this presentation, I'm going to start with a really short little slideshow presentation. And then the bulk of this presentation is going to be sort of walking you through mainly Google Analytics is the one that I'm going to be focusing on, but a number of other tools at our disposal as well that we use in UComm, and I know lots of folks use across the university. So hopefully this isn't too boring. So I'm just going to kick it off now with this short little presentation I've put together, and then we'll jump into hopefully the more fun stuff. Can everybody see my slides? Just a thumbs up. Okay, thank you, Molly. Molly and I go way back. We worked on a project together recently. Lots of unfamiliar names. I'm going to see. I would really prefer to be doing this in person, but obviously circumstances are preventing us from doing that. So I want to try to make this as interactive as possible because my preference is to make my high school public speaking teacher proud by interacting with the audience and asking questions and making eye contact and stuff like that. And obviously, that's hard to do on Zoom. So without further ado, here is a presentation. Woo. I see a chat. Public speaking teachers, they're so great. Yes, I agree, Rhea. Thank you.
It's Rhea.
Sorry?
It's Rhea.
Rhea, thank you, Rhea. I really loved my public speaking teacher in high school. His name was Tom Green, actually, like the actor. But he wasn't the actor. He was just a guy named Tom Green.
I don't know who that actor is, so he's safe.
He's featured in such famous films as Freddy Got Fingered.
Okay.
He's just a really, yeah, Christian Tom Green is a legend. Yeah, I agree. This is kind of like Twitch. Does anybody watch Twitch streaming online?
My daughter does.
Yeah, I have a friend who's actually famous on Twitch, and I'll join, and I have no idea what's going on, but I want to be supportive. So anyway, sorry, I get distracted easily. About me, I am web strategist with University of Communications. I have a web development and content strategy background. As Janine mentioned, I used to work for a company. I actually worked with her husband at this previous company where we managed this website with millions of active users, and it was really a trial by fire scenario. I love dogs. We're currently fostering dogs through a border collie rescue. I love to travel. This picture was taken in Scotland, and I may have had a few drinks before this picture was taken, so that's why I look happy. I like to try to keep this analytics stuff, when I have to talk about it, as simple as possible, but I often fail at this because it's sometimes hard to keep it simple. About this presentation, I talked about this a little bit earlier. And my goal is really to try to provide a basic introduction and overview of the magical world of data analytics. Stephanie says border collies are the best. I agree. Thank you for sharing, Stephanie. This presentation is going to be fittingly a bit of a data dump. There is a lot of information, a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to try my best to make it as useful as possible. But hopefully, if you don't have any background in analytics, hopefully this will serve as a good conversation starter. And maybe, you can find some folks who are actually interested in this stuff in your department. And if you do have advanced knowledge of analytics, hopefully you'll find some nuggets of wisdom or some tips and tricks in this presentation. If you don't, I apologize. And maybe you can teach this next time. I would really like to try to tailor this to the audience, but unfortunately we're not in the same room, so I can't judge body language very well. If I go over something that sounds confusing, usually I can see some confused looks in the audience and some squirming, and people look like they're in physical pain. And I can kind of stop and try to clarify. So feel free to, put a question in the chat, or use the little raise hand feature, or just start yelling and I'll stop. We're going to try our best. All right. Here's the most complicated part, I think, of the beginning of this presentation. I really want to try to get a better idea of who I'm speaking with. I recognize this may be hard. And I know there's a lot of folks in the group, and I only recognize a handful of names. So I'm wondering if I could get just like 4 or 5 people that I don't know already. Sorry, Molly. To maybe briefly tell me about themselves and what they wish to gain out of this presentation. Is any takers? Anybody at all?
I'll go. I'm Susan Jakes. I lead the program for North Carolina State Extension and Community and Rural Development. And we do lots of Google Analytics on our sites, but I have no idea how to do that. So my team does that work and they tell me stuff, and I kind of want to know more about what they're telling me.
Thank you, Susan. Nice to meet you virtually.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
I'll go next if no one else jumps in. My name is Margaret, and I'm a communicator for our Ag and Resource Economics Department. And I have analytics all set up, and I can do it. Like, I can do what I need to do, but it's painful. Like, it just takes me so long to do it that I think it's because I don't use it often enough. So this is kind of a refresher to me because I probably haven't even gone in my dashboard in like 3 or 4 months. So it's bad. So I need to like jumpstart into remembering how to do it and just get back in the mode.
Thank you, Margaret. And I see a couple people are putting in the chat. I think it's Ria, not Rhea, right?
Pretty sure it is Ria. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to use your voice, or would you like me to just look at the chat?
I can talk. That's fine. I just
Okay.
always volunteer. So I'm Ria. I do communications and web, etc. stuff for the Preston Department of Poultry Science. I also am a librarian, and I have taken numerous courses and workshops in data analytics. So I'm pretty comfortable with it. I do want to do. When you said like you get too detailed or not simple, I'm like, yes, go, but maybe in a different workshop. But I mostly just want to hear. I like to hear how other people on campus, other units, other groups are approaching analytics and what they're pulling and what they're finding most useful, or what they're applying the most. So that's sort of where I'm coming from.
Cool. Thanks, Ria. And I hope you get something useful out of this presentation.
I always do.
Well, I'll see if I can. I hope I don't break your record there.
You won't, because I've been trained by the best mentors ever to find something useful in every single workshop I go to, no matter how tiny. So
Good.
Together we'll get there.
All right. And I see Stephanie and Noah. Would either of you like to introduce yourselves, or do you want me to just read the chat? Stephanie's a county program specialist. She doesn't do NCSU reporting, but she helps her coworkers. Thank you, Stephanie. Noah, and I'm going to cut it off after Noah. Co-director for the NC Farm Link and serve 55 eastern counties. Wow, that's like the whole East. Interested in tools to report on and manage our website. Okay, cool. Thanks you, everybody. Well, this is really helpful to get a better idea of who I'm speaking with. So I really appreciate that. And it sounds like we have some folks who are, in the extension office who might be spread around the state. So I hope the weather's better wherever you are, because it's kind of gross here today in Raleigh. All right, cool. Without further ado, here is a big, complicated chart that is intimidating and terrible, and I'm sorry, but when I was thinking about how to approach this presentation, I need to make this little video box thing go away so I can see my screen. Okay, cool. When I was thinking about how to approach this presentation, I was thinking about all of the tools that we use in university communications and then all of the similar products that are used across the digital analytics ecosystem, aka BI, which stands for business intelligence. I think that's a bit of a pretentious title, so I just say analytics, to refer to all of it. And as you might gather by this very ugly chart that I put together, there's a lot of stuff out there. And it really is all connected by your central analytics software. So I think, hopefully, I'm going to talk through the stuff that's on this slide. And hopefully this will start by laying a foundation. Let's see, a chat box. Thank you, Brandon. I don't believe you that this chat is beautiful, but I appreciate the encouragement. I'll always take encouragement. So hopefully this will help give an idea of, the general what is out there. And then the next part of this presentation is I'll walk you through some of these tools that we use in UComm, but also really focusing on Google Analytics, because I think that's the really good starting point. But for those of you who already have some analytics background, some of these other tools work with Google Analytics or other analytics platforms and we find to be really useful. Let's see, we have another chat. Janine, my chat box keeps popping up and then disappearing. If you wouldn't mind, just bringing my attention to chat comments.
Absolutely.
If you wouldn't, just so I can. Thank you, Ria. I don't know what Morris means.
William Morris, the designer.
Ah,
He
okay.
said you should never have anything in your house that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful.
Oh, was Morris like the original? Who's the person?
He's the ultra
Maria.
famous arts and crafts designer. You've seen his work everywhere.
Yeah.
Wallpapers and architecture, everything. Yeah, he's a big deal.
So I was thinking of Marie Kondo when you mentioned that, not everything in your house should be useful or beautiful.
Yeah, she's pulling from William Morris. He was a turn of the 20th century big deal. He's long dead now, but yeah.
Very cool. Well, I don't know anything about design. So I appreciate it. There's lots of interesting stuff. And we're very dangerously close to a tangent. So I'm going to try my hardest to save this for another time and get back to the presentation. Because I don't want to bore you guys with all my random, anyway. Okay, back to the presentation. Thank you, Ria, for sharing. Like I said, we're going to focus on Google Analytics. This logo is in the wrong place. That's interesting. Huh. That's a weird glitch. This can everybody see my mouse pointer? Do I need to turn on here? Can you see this?
Yes, we see.
Please ignore this logo. That's in the wrong place. That's gonna really bug me. I don't know how that happened. That's supposed to be Adobe Analytics. So anyway, at the center of this ecosystem, you really have your analytics software, and in UComm and across the university, I think the most popular analytics software that we use is definitely Google Analytics. The benefits of Google Analytics is that it's free, and Google has been offering it for a very long time, and they know what they're doing, and it's very useful, and it's full of features and integrations, and everybody uses it. This logo is supposed to be Adobe Analytics. Once again, I'm not sure how that got in there. Adobe Analytics is, I think it's somewhat newer than Google Analytics, and it's very powerful, but it's also very expensive. So we don't really use Adobe Analytics. At least it was very expensive the last time I checked. The pricing may have changed, as is common with these software platforms. And then, more of a newcomer on the scene is Facebook with their analytics offering. If you know what a pixel is, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, we'll talk about pixels. If you have your Facebook pixel installed on your website, your Facebook analytics is automatically enabled. So you can go into Facebook and look at the analytics of your website. In my, personal and professional opinion, Facebook analytics is just okay. I don't think it's quite a competitor with Google Analytics yet. It's getting there. But I also trust Facebook slightly less than I trust Google, just frankly. And I know a lot of this stuff is, frankly, a lot of this stuff is kind of creepy. The level of stuff that you can see and of your users on your website and what they're doing, it's a little bit weird. Molly says they don't promise not to be evil. Well, yeah, Google also doesn't promise not to be evil anymore. Their official motto or whatever, they quietly took that out of their guiding principles, I think, when Alphabet launched. So, Google, anyway. The level of, detail that you can see, usually there's no personally identifying information, unless you are purposefully trying to trick people into giving away their personal information. Usually all of this stuff is anonymized, so you can't actually see, individual data and information. But once you're familiar with this ecosystem, it does start to make you think differently about how you use the internet and about how your data is being collected and shared. I know that when I first started learning about this stuff, I immediately installed an ad blocker on my browser because I did not want all of this information to be gathered about me. But for folks, and just as a caveat, as a side note, we do have a university-wide privacy policy that covers all of this analytics stuff. And we do make sure that all of the stuff that we do is GDPR compliant, because we have, European students and stuff like that. So if you want to learn more about the university's privacy stance on this stuff, you can go to ncsu.edu/privacy. And another, I think it's /privacy. It might be /privacy-policy. Anyway, it's on ncsu.edu. You can scroll to the bottom and click the privacy link in the footer. And that's, really important because we are a university, we're a public institution, and we're not a, small private company that can necessarily get away with not having very good privacy practices. So, before you start experimenting with this stuff, if you're not already familiar with some of the privacy concerns that comes with all this analytics software, I would encourage you to familiarize yourself at least with our privacy policy on our website. And I also think it's very important that before you install any of these tools, that your website links to the university privacy policy, which covers the entire university. If your website doesn't link to the privacy policy, that's not necessarily a big deal. I would encourage you to try to add a link to the university privacy policy at some point if you are running any of these tools on your website. So that's just my little disclaimer, because I simultaneously find all this stuff interesting and have learned a lot about it, and I also care a lot about privacy, and I think that's very important. So we want to make sure that we're protecting the personal data of our students, employees, and faculty and fans and everything. So anyway, getting off my soapbox. Then once you've chosen your analytics software, Google Analytics, Facebook Analytics, and this logo is supposed to be Adobe Analytics, we're going to focus on Google Analytics for this presentation. Once you've chosen that, there's all sorts of things that you can find that will help you measure small parts of your digital marketing efforts, and almost all of them plug into your Google Analytics one way or the other. This chart is by no means comprehensive. What I'm just trying to do is trying to get an idea of sort of the basic stuff that, not really the basic, but the main things that we really focus on in university communications when we're doing analytics on the core site or with any of the partners that we work with across campus, and some of the stuff that we do. So I'm just going to sort of start up here and go around. Is that clockwise, counterclockwise? Anyway, one of those. SEO, does search engine optimization. Hopefully that's not, so if you're not familiar with SEO, basically the idea with SEO is that you are trying to optimize your website so that the content that you're spending a lot of time and effort on, and from what I've seen across the university, is that we spend a lot of time, and this is a good thing, we spend a lot of time on producing high quality content for the university, especially like the extension office has all kinds of content that they're publishing, which is really awesome. I know we have very talented writers, like Molly is on this call. I've worked with Molly. She's awesome. In UComm, we have a bunch of writers. In CALS Comm, we have a bunch of writers. So we're publishing all this great information, and we really want to make sure that people are actually finding it. And these days, the way that people find this stuff, I see a chat. Okay. Yeah, Janine, I see your chat, but I really need to cover a lot of the stuff before we get into just the dashboard stuff. The thing about SEO in particular is the default Google Analytics installation can only tell you so much about how your content is performing with SEO, and you really need to have a better grip on how your content is performing than Google Analytics is able to provide. So Google also offers Google Search Console, which tells you how your content is performing on Google Search. But there's also a number of tools that we use, like Moz for SEO, and I've also helped other units use SEMrush, which really helps with SEO as well. And then there's your reporting tools. So your reporting tools, really, everything that you're using is feeding into Google Analytics, more or less. With the exception of maybe tools like heat mapping tools like Crazy Egg and Hotjar, which we can talk about. These actually read from Google Analytics, but they don't provide a bunch of information back to Google Analytics. But all of this other stuff can and does provide a bunch of extra information inside Google Analytics that you can then take into your reporting tool in order to create dashboards and automated reports that really can make all of this information, you can cut to the chase and you know, deliver to the people that you work with, you know, reports and dashboards that help people quickly understand the performance of the website. And then in the interest of time, you know, I'll just go through these folks real quick, and then we'll move on to sort of a guided tour. You also, you know, if you do digital advertising, Google Ads and Facebook Ads and all the other digital advertising platforms provide a lot of really helpful analytics about how your ads are performing. And then if you're not doing A/B testing, we can talk about that a little bit more. Tools like Google Optimize and Optimizely really help you test. The idea behind these tools is that you're testing variations of your content to see what's more effective. So for instance, with Google Optimize, you can test, for instance, you can try 2 different titles of a story, and what it'll do is it'll serve one title to 50% of the audience, and it'll serve the other title to 50% of the audience. And then you can see what that effect was, as an example. So does one title lead to people reading the entire article, or you know, something like that. And then you have your advanced tools that make life a lot easier, which are things like Google Tag Manager. You'll notice that Google has a stake in almost all of these things. They do testing tools, advertising, this advanced stuff, analytics, reporting, SEO, etc. And you know, they do email too with Gmail. So that's one of the reasons that why I prefer Google products, is because that is their specialty. And if you can name it for digital advertising, Google probably has a product for it. The main caveat being that Google also likes to randomly end support for its products, which if you were a Google Reader user back in the day and you had your RSS feeds and everything, you probably remember when Google, you know, pretty suddenly ended support for Google Reader. So that's the main caveat that I'll give people, is Google offers lots of great free tools, but you should not be completely dependent on Google, because they might, you know, with any of their smaller tools, I think Google Analytics is fairly safe, but they might essentially pull the rug out from under you with some of their smaller tools. Finally, there's no substitute for working with somebody who can do some custom coding for you. That's really helpful. And that's sort of the ecosystem in general. And we're going to move on to more of a guided tour of some of these tools, particularly Google Analytics. Is there any questions about this before we move on? Am I boring anybody to death? Anybody? I can't see you because I've turned off my video. Okay, it looks like nobody has any questions. Cool. That's how I like it. I'm going to skip this, is where I was going to talk about why all this stuff exists. And what I'm going to do is just end here. Excuse me. This says sharing is paused. Hold on a second. Weird. 1 second. Okay, cool. Can everybody see Google Analytics?
Yes.
Cool, thank you. So this is the portion, I'm sorry, Ria, this is going to be very boring to you, because I'm just going to go through a basic.
Review is never bad.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a basic, a fairly, you know, basic Google Analytics installation. and go through all of the stuff that you can get with Google Analytics. I think one of the surprising things that I found, well, it's surprising to me, but it's okay, is a lot of folks have never even logged into their Google Analytics, or they don't know if their website has it running. So if you're one of those folks, I welcome you to reach out to your IT staff. If you don't know if you have access to Google Analytics or if it's running on your site, feel free to send me an email after this presentation, and I usually know who to talk to around the university depending on what unit you're in. So, you know, probably for you guys, the main person would be CALS IT. So if you don't know if you have analytics on your website or if you need access to it, I would encourage you to reach out to CALS IT. I know Rebecca O'Connell. I don't think she's on this call, but I've worked with Rebecca before, and she's awesome.
I can testify that she is great, and she's always helped me whenever I need help, and she's very fast and helpful.
Yeah. Rebecca's fantastic. I've worked with her on a couple things. So, you know, if you need access, feel free to reach out to her.
Yeah, I just to expand on that. I mean, I emailed her and just set up a 30-minute meeting with her, and this was probably last year. And she showed me how to use Data Studio, which was really helpful to make reports to send to people. So if you're interested in just getting like a report to give to your department head, or just to see like some general or specific things, she can help with that, which is very helpful to me.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. I think I actually worked with Rebecca on a Data Studio project, I think about a year ago. So that's cool to hear. Meredith says, for extension portals and county websites, contact Extension IT rather than CALS IT. Thanks, Meredith, for sharing that. That's helpful information. So if you're an extension, definitely contact Extension IT, which is a different entity than CALS IT, if I remember correctly. We have so many different IT shops on campus.
For many of the people that were signed up for this class and indicated they didn't have permissions, I went ahead and already reached out to your contact, and you all should have permissions now. So
fantastic. That's awesome. So cool. For those of you who didn't have access before, hopefully after this little rundown, you'll be able to log in and play around. And the thing about Google Analytics is that you're not gonna be able to break anything. If you're brand new to analytics, I know sometimes folks might have some confusion about like the difference between Google Analytics and like WordPress. I know that sometimes that's a source of confusion. Nothing that you do in Google Analytics is going to affect your website in any way. So feel free to play around and change things. You're most likely not going to break anything. I would be surprised if you figure out a way to break stuff, but you never know. So let's just run through this real quick. When you log into Google Analytics, this is what it looks like these days. And in the home screen, this is for, we're actually looking at the analytics account for ncsu.edu. So this is a combined view that includes the analytics for the homepage and also for NC State News. So when we log in, we immediately start to get a picture of how the website is performing. Here you can see your data for the last 7 days. So over the last 7 days, we had 70,000 users who visited the website, and we can see a live view where we have about 140 users who are currently using the website. And you can also see, what are the most common pages that they're on. So it looks like a large portion of the people who are currently active on the site are just on the homepage. Some people are searching, some people are looking at the the departments lists, you know, maybe to try to find their department that they're looking for. And then we have some folks who are looking at admissions. I know the admissions office is doing a push for the yield campaign right now. So we hopefully have lots of students who are coming to confirm that they'll be attending NC State. You know, this default, you know, home screen is sort of a dashboard. It meets the definition of a dashboard. It's not a custom dashboard by any means, but if you have no analytics experience at all, if you just log into analytics and look at this page, it will start to get your gears turning. For instance, it will show you, excuse me for a second, it will show you the most common times that people actually visit your website. So this is a week view, and we can see that in the past 30 days, the most common time for people to visit the website is Tuesdays at around 11 a.m. for whatever reason, who knows. This probably has a lot to do with email newsletters that are sent out. For instance, I know the bulletin, I think the bulletin is sent on Tuesday mornings, and okay, Molly's shaking her head no. So I don't know when the bulletin's sent, but I do know that Tuesday at 10 a.m. is a common time to send out email blasts. So it's becoming a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy where we know that one of the most common times for people to open emails is, you know, Tuesday mornings. So we're sending out emails on Tuesday mornings, which means that we're getting a lot of traffic to our website on Tuesday mornings. In analytics, you can also see where in the world your users are located. So for us, this is no big surprise that the vast majority of our users are in the United States. You can dig into this to get, if you click over to like location overview, for instance, you can start to dig into this and you can get a pretty granular picture of exactly where your users are located. This is, as an aside note, this is an optional feature in Google Analytics that you have to make sure to enable. And we'll hopefully be able to get to that a little bit later in our tour of Google Analytics. So you can really start to dig into this and get a good idea of exactly where your users are located. So here we're looking at the states, and also no surprise, most of our users are in North Carolina. We can dig into it even further, and we can see at the city level exactly where our users are. So in the triangle, once again, not a surprise, a lot of our users are in the Raleigh area. Then you have some folks over in Charlotte and little blips, you know, you've got the triad over here, Wilmington, which is where I'm from, shout out for Wilmington. So it might be kind of interesting for those of you in Extension Office, it might be kind of interesting to look at the geography of where your users are located. And it's, you know, it might be kind of interesting to see that I know a lot of the extension offices publish a lot of information on their website that may be intended for the county that they work in, but perhaps, you know, your content is being used all over the state, or people are using your website from elsewhere. I know a lot of the times when I Google some question, like I have a home garden. So I was Googling some information about soil, and I think I found like the Randolph County extension office as one of the top results. So I found the information that they were publishing useful, even though they're in Randolph County. So anyway, this is one of the more fun and interactive things that you can dig into with Google Analytics. And we're going to go back to the home page now. and complete our tour of the homepage. This is going to require a second to load again. You can see what devices your users are using. So on the NC State homepage, a lot of our users are on desktops. We are still not totally sure why this is, but we think it actually has something to do with all of the computer labs on campus having ncsu.edu set as their default browser. So we think that's one of the reasons why we have so much desktop traffic. If you look at any other website in the world right now, mobile is really the thing that's driving most traffic. So that's why it's very important for your website to be mobile friendly. If you do Google Ads campaigns and you have it connected to Google Ads, it'll show you how your ads are performing down here. This is not very useful, honestly, for most folks. And then it shows your top pages. This is the thing, if you get nothing else out of this analytics presentation, this is the thing that I would encourage you to pay attention to, is what are the top pages on your website, because I think that'll start to give you a picture of what people are really looking for. And this is going to look different, very different for every website. On ncsu.edu, it gets used a lot as a tool by campus. So the vast majority of people, or the vast plurality of people, I would say, are going to ncsu.edu and then immediately searching for something that they need. So that's what you can see here is a lot of search stuff. And then a lot of people are interested in what's going on with coronavirus on campus. So that page that we're publishing about coronavirus is currently getting a lot of traffic. Then you have the directory. People are looking for people to contact. You have admissions, more coronavirus stuff. And this is remarkably consistent on the NCSU homepage. People are using it for a utility and, whenever major events happen. But this is something that I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with your own website, is just what are your top pages? What are people looking at the most on your website? So, okay, that's kind of a basic overview. This is the most basic that Google Analytics can get. Are there any questions about this sort of homepage basic view?
Hey, Alan, I have a question. So when it has customization, does that mean that you can move different diagrams around, or there would be things you would add to that, first glance? How custom can you get? What would be important to add to that custom field or your entry point?
So that's a great question. Thank you, Janine. So this homepage that you see that you log into analytics is not really very customizable. This customization tool that you see, and there's a lot of stuff, you really don't need to dig into this as a basic user, because you can find all of the information that you need, and there's some default dashboards, and we'll kind of walk through these next. The customization is really if you want to build a custom dashboard within Google Analytics. If you want to build something that looks kind of like this, but really gets to specific things that you're looking for, you can go into this dashboards feature, which we don't even really use in ncsu.edu, because we use tools like Google Data Studio and NinjaCat, which is something we can talk about a little bit later. But really, for your basic use cases of analytics, and if you're not doing anything advanced with Google Analytics, you'll be able to find 95% of what you need in one of these tabs at the bottom that we'll go through. So yeah, the home screen, not really customizable. Once you become more of an advanced user of analytics, you might want to build your own custom reports or dashboards. Or really, you know, like to, I think Margaret was the one who earlier mentioned working with Rebecca on Google Data Studio reports. Really, I would recommend using Google Data Studio once you get to the point of doing a really custom dashboard. So for instance, just this is kind of off topic a little bit, but this is an example of a dashboard that we built for news.ncsu.edu that's filterable and also allows you to print it as a PDF. So for instance, this is just some really basic stuff. And one of the things that this allows you to do is, for instance, if you're a writer, you can go in here and you can, here's an article called The Top Vegetables in North Carolina, which was published in 2018. And you can say, okay, I want to look at only the stats for this specific article. And if you are the author of this article, you can then print this out and, you know, you take it to your meetings and brag about what kind of traffic your article that you published in 2018 is getting. And it'll show you information about your users and where they're located and where they came from, and importantly, you know, what they did next. So for this one specific article, the vast majority of people, when this says not set, that means they did not visit a second page. So the vast majority of people who looked at this article, we have, you know, 593 people who looked at this article, and 585 of them, these are rough numbers. They may not always add up correctly. 485 of those people just left after reading the article, which is fine because they found what they wanted. One person searched for squash. So that's great. They found news.ncsu.edu and they typed squash in the search bar. And I hope they found what they were looking for, information about squash. So yeah, Janine, does that help answer your question?
Yes, that's super helpful.
Okay, cool.
And then, Alan, can I just derail you for 1 second? Hey, all, if you have entry issues, I don't know that we can address them right now, but that's something that we can talk about long term. Alan, I don't know, Jill is asking if once you have an account and everything, if it will how soon you'll have data to look at. Is that something you can answer really quick?
Oh, wow, there's lots of chat questions.
I've been trying to answer what I can, so I'm only directing you to the ones that I can't answer.
Okay. We don't have access to the page. What was the question, Janine?
So, the one that I want your input on is, so it looks like Jill signed up for Google Analytics. She's got it set, but she's curious when she'll start to have data to make decisions or look at.
Okay, yeah. Once a brand new analytics account is set up, it usually takes about 24 hours for data to start to sync with Google Analytics. It really depends on your individual website. So if you've set it up on like my personal blog, alancoin.com, which gets practically zero traffic. If I were setting up analytics on that site, it might take a while for there to be any sort of useful data to come in. But usually for most, NC State websites, you'll start to see some useful stuff, and within a week or so. Does that help answer your question, Jill, for a brand new?
She said thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that. Oh, and she's from Randolph County, so that's awesome because they helped me with my garden a while ago. So okay, cool. And just to recap, This is, if you just go to analytics.google.com and log in, you should be presented automatically with something that looks roughly like this. So here's, a newer feature of Google Analytics that is really helpful is this Insights tool. This is pretty cool because Google is trying to automate and replace people like me who know how to use Google Analytics, which is, a mixed bag for folks like me, but it's really great for general audience. Because you can really go into this, analytics intelligence thing and find some, basic information about how your website is performing. So you can even do things like, let's see, it used to let you type a question to it. I wonder if they've ended support for that feature, which they tend to do. Google loves to just randomly end support for its products. Anyway, you can dig into this. You can click Insights here, and it usually takes a while for Google to start giving useful insights, but then you can just kind of click through some of these things, and it's in common, English language. So like, how many users did I have last week? You can click that, and it will show you the number of users and the most active days. You can do things like, where are my users coming from? So let's look at what percentage of my users came from organic search in the last 30 days. So that number seems low. So I'm not sure how much I trust that number. And that's the thing is, you do have to develop a bit of a instinct for how this stuff works, because I know that organic search is a huge driver of traffic. So I would want to go to this report and say, you know what, 3.5%, that seems really low. I'm going to dig into this a little bit. And, this is an interesting thing to consider because this number, oh, I'm on a client's website. That's why that's so low. Ha! Okay, that's hilarious. Okay, sorry about that. I was on my personal website looking at a website that I built for a client as a personal project. So anyway, I'm back on insights.edu, and I'm going back to what percentage of my users came from organic search. 46%. Okay, that's the kind of number that I was looking for NCSU.edu. So 50% of, roughly 50% of our users to NCSU.edu are coming from organic search. So, that's the kind of insights that you can glean just from this new insight tool. So I would encourage you, if you're brand new to analytics, to just play around with some of these insights if they're available to you. Sometimes these only become available after your analytics account is of a certain age, or has been around for long enough that it can start to give you some insights. So if you have a brand new Google Analytics account, this might not show up immediately. So any questions at this point? Janine, I'm kind of leaning on you to help me keep an eye on the chat function, the chat box.
We're doing good. A few people are jumping off.
Okay. Bye, everybody who has to go. How much more time do we technically have, Janine? I think
We were banking on 10 to 11, but
okay.
this is recorded, so people who would like to go, I would like you to finish
Yeah.
as you were going. So just go live your best life, Alan.
All right. Thanks everybody who has been able to join. I'm gonna keep going here. So if anybody wants to stick around, you're welcome to. If you want to get going, I think Janine is gonna send out the recording of this session. So you'll be able to switch to the 1 hour mark or whatever, and keep watching at that point. So I'm just going to keep going with this analytics presentation at this point because I'm on a roll. Thank you, Christian. So, okay, digging into this sort of, I want to dig into these 5 things on the left. And really, once you have a familiarity with this homepage and this insights tool and these 5 things on the left, you're going to be able to answer like 95% of the questions that you have about your website. So let's dig into this real quick. Let's look at the real time. So real time gives you information about, how your website is performing in real time. So I'm going to click overview here. All of these things have an overview, and I would recommend that you get started with the overview thing. So you click real time and then overview. And this gives us a live picture of how people are using your website. So we're on ncsu.edu, and we're seeing that we currently have 132 people who are actively using the website. And of them, 75% of them are on desktop and 23% of them are on mobile. This gives us an idea of how our page views are trending for the past 30 minutes or so. And then we can scroll down and we can get some more information about the live users who are on our website. And you'll see that as this information updates in real time, it will briefly be highlighted in green or red. Red signifying something, decreasing in popularity, green signifying something increasing in popularity or new or whatever. So you can see that the libraries is driving 3 people to the website right now. So that's, of the 132 people that are live, almost all of them are coming from different sources. But 3 of them are coming from lib.ncsu.edu. Then we have this self-referral thing, which is kind of a quirk of Google Analytics that I would just encourage you to just ignore right now. Traffic from ncsu.edu to ncsu.edu doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. Then fi.ncsu.edu, I actually don't know what that is. Some folks are coming from there. You got student services. And then it shows you your top active pages. Most people are on the home page. A lot of people are searching. And here's one of the funniest ones that always comes up is this article that we cannot get rid of, which is an article that was published in 2014 called "What's the Difference Between Baking Powder and Baking Soda?" So I think this is kind of hilarious because this is on the news site, and this is essentially an explainer article that was published in 2014 that somehow has just dominated Google search results. So if you go to Google and you do difference between baking soda and baking powder, NC State will pop up, on the top page most of the time. It does change your search results if you're logged in versus not. So for some reason, we just get lots of traffic from that baking soda query. So anyway.
Hey, if you get it wrong, your stuff tastes nasty. So it's important. Perpetual question.
It is important.
So Alan, with the top active page, oh, my dog, sorry. So if it's not dogs, it's children. My life is a zoo. Top active pages, there's that slash that says 44, and then the top referral, it just has 4. How are those numbers so different?
Good question. Thank you. So the slash is just the homepage. So that's ncsu.edu/ with nothing after it, which is the homepage. Does that answer your question, Janine?
Well, but then why isn't the referral number higher?
Okay. So referrals tells you where your traffic is coming from. And then top active pages shows you where the most people are on your website actively. So if you think about it, of the 48 people who are on the homepage right now, they all probably came from different places to find the homepage. So, you can think there's somebody who went directly to ncsu.edu. There's somebody who, came from Google. There's somebody who came from Facebook. And they're all on the homepage. Versus the top referrals, which is showing you for your entire website, what other websites on the internet are sending traffic to your website. And Carol says FI is the Friday Institute. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing, Carol. I actually know somebody who works for Friday Institute, so that's neat. Does that answer your question, Janine?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So,
hey, Alan.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to throw in a suggestion there for people who may not know. Like if you see something on your site in your analytics and you don't know what page that is, that you can just click on it from here and you'll go to the page. I just noticed you didn't do that for FI, which makes sense because you're showing us that. But there have definitely been times where I'm like, what the heck is that? So I'm like, I just have to click on the link and be like, oh, I didn't know that page existed or whatever.
Yeah. So for this one, you can, I don't think ours is set up so that you can just click through, but you can go to ncsu.edu/faculty staff, and that'll show you the page that people are looking at. There's Josh, who works in the Alumni Association, or he used to. He's in DASA now. So yeah, cool. So then on this real-time thing, you can, dig into this a little bit more and get some more granular information about each one of those things. Of our active users right now, 3 of them are in France. 1 of them is in Algeria, Belgium, Bermuda, so that's kind of neat. Then you can dig into that traffic sources a little bit more and see that most of them are direct traffic. A lot of them are coming from Google, Instagram, Bing, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can get a live view of how your content is performing. So you have the homepage is performing well, NC State Search. This is all the same stuff that you saw in the overview. So I think that's a pretty good overview of the real-time stuff. Is there any questions about the real-time stuff that you can see in Google Analytics? Cool. So then the second tab that I think is very helpful to familiarize yourself with is the audience tab. So this is where you can go to get an idea of really just in general who your audience is and where they're coming from and stuff like that. So you can choose your date range up here. We're looking at the past week, and we're seeing that we had 70,000 users come to our website in the past week. And of them, 65% of them were new visitors, and about 35% of them were returning visitors. This information here is from their browser. So you can see the vast majority have their language set to US English or just general English, Great British English. This is Chinese, Canadian English, French, Spanish, Indian English, Australian English, etc. So that can give you a little bit more of an idea about who your users are. And then we're gonna hop around this user section a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about this demographics overview. This is information that is not enabled by default on Google Analytics. And this is something that's worked into the NC State privacy policy. So if your website is linking to the NC State privacy policy, you may enable this feature and get a little bit more information about your users via this demographic thing. So this shows us just some basic demographics about the people who are visiting our page. And we can see that in terms of age range, our biggest cohort is the 25 to 34-year-old bracket, which I think is, a representative of a lot of staff and graduate students, followed by, undergrad age folks. And then it gives you a gender breakdown. Female, 56% of our users are female. And you can dig into that a little bit deeper if you want to. Just sort of shows you performance. That's, this is not extremely useful stuff, but it's kind of interesting to look at. And this interest category thing is also something, this gets into like kind of the creepier side of Google Analytics. Because this is the kind of information that Google has about everybody. So, once again, not necessarily extremely helpful to look at, but maybe kind of interesting. These affinity categories is like what Google thinks your users are interested in. So you have your your media and entertainment movie lovers, basically people who watch Netflix. That's not crazy insightful. So you can dig into that a little bit, and this is, probably going to look different depending on your website, with some, fairly common ones like employment, education is going to be fairly common. So, feel free to dig into this category and, see if you can find anything useful about your audience through this. And then you've got some of the same stuff that we saw earlier through the location feature. Then you can also see what kind of devices your users are using. This kind of information was a lot more helpful back when mobile web design was like a new thing. But really the standards for modern web design is that your website should be mobile friendly. Because if you look at most websites that are out there, your mobile traffic is going to be, about half. And that's a general trend, is every year more people are consuming content on the internet via their mobile device, and not, fewer people are using their laptops or desktops. So you really want to make sure that your website is mobile friendly. And if your website is not mobile friendly and you're trying to make the case for your manager or your IT staff to update the website to make it mobile friendly, you may be able to show them this data and be like, hey, 50% of our audience, because like I said, this number is slightly different for most websites. The NCSU website is a little bit of an exception. You can say, hey, 50% of our audience, the website does not look good for them, so we need to update that. That's just some, basic information about the audience feature. Are there any questions about this audience tab? Going once. Cool. Then the third tab over here, that I really think these top three, are really going to answer a whole lot of your questions. The third one is acquisition, which is where is your traffic coming from? So we're going to give this a second to load. And when we look at this overview, this is pretty typical stuff. It's very common for organic search to be one of your top drivers of traffic. I know search is not like hot and cool anymore like it used to be, but you definitely want to make sure that your content is SEO friendly, because that's going to be the thing that's driving most of your traffic usually. And like we talked about earlier, with this, ecosystem that I put together, you can use tools like Moz or SEMrush or Google Search Console to really get a better idea of how your traffic is performing on search. And there's a lot of opportunity for driving more traffic to your website by looking at SEO a little bit. Referral traffic is traffic from other websites. So we can dig into this a little bit and look at some of the websites that are driving most traffic to ncsu.edu. Here's Comtech. So whenever you log into the campus Wi-Fi, it usually forwards you to ncsu.edu. So we have a lot of traffic that comes from OIT. Which doesn't necessarily directly benefit us because folks just kind of leave the website as soon as they land. But we appreciate that OIT is redirected to the homepage. Then a lot of traffic from student services, admissions. There's CALS is a big driver of traffic to ncsu.edu. So thank you everybody for that, et cetera, et cetera. Pretty, standard stuff that you might expect. So that's, this is kind of the basic overview of just where is my traffic coming from? And, one thing, that you can pay attention to is you can really pay attention to your traffic from things like social and email that you might be spending a lot of time on. So, if you're quite concerned about your social media channels, but you're also seeing that they're just not driving a lot of traffic, or for instance, or if your email is driving a lot of traffic, but you're not spending a whole lot of time on your email, maybe that's an opportunity for you to consider. Maybe I should spend a little bit more time on my email. Email is not dead. I kind of put it over here in its own sad little tiny cloud. But, for instance, Day of Giving last year, email was our top driver of donations for Day of Giving by far. So email is definitely not dead, and it's definitely something that it's really useful to spend some time on. And if you spend a little bit of time on email, you'll probably see that you quickly start driving a lot of traffic to your site via your email lists. We mentioned Search Console earlier. So when you click on Search Console with the default analytics setup, this is not going to be pulling in any information by default. You do have to go to Google Search Console and set up your website in Search Console, which is Google's tool that communicates information about how your website is appearing on Google itself. So for now, Google is still the dominant search platform, so it's definitely useful to go in and go ahead and set up your Search Console account. And then that can link to your analytics account, and it can feed information from Search Console directly into analytics, which can allow you to dig into what are people searching for, and when they do land on my site from those search terms, what are they doing? So for instance, you can see here that, a lot of people are coming to our website by Googling NC State, North Carolina State University, NCSU, et cetera. this is probably going to be quite different for a lot of your websites out there. For instance, the Randolph County Extension site that I mentioned earlier, which helped me with my garden. You know, you're probably going to see different search results as your top search result. Maybe you'll see Randolph County Extension Office as one of the top search results for that extension office. Or maybe, you know, you've got a baking powder versus baking soda situation where you published an article that's getting a lot of traffic. So you have people searching for like how to grow squash or something like that, which might be what I was searching for. And then, you know, what you do with that information is very context specific. Does it necessarily make sense just because people are searching for squash? Does that mean that you should publish a lot of articles about squash? Well, I don't know. It depends on what your goals are for your website. And all of this stuff comes back to your business goals ultimately. Then acquisition, social media is always a hot topic of conversation. You know, Facebook is a big driver. Our Facebook account is probably our most active social media account at the enterprise level. So most of our social traffic is coming from Facebook. It looks like we've got some traffic from Naver. I've never heard of that before. I have no idea what that is, but apparently it's a social media platform. There's always new ones popping up. Add me on Naver, I guess. No idea. Okay. And then you've got your campaigns, which is really dependent on using your beautiful UTM parameters, which I mentioned in this advanced stuff cloud. So UTM parameters are little, you know, bits of stuff that you can add to the end of a URL, which makes tracking traffic from those links. Naver equals South Korea. Oh, thank you, Janine. So I'm going to set up my account on my South Korean social media website, and you guys can all add me afterwards. Anyway, so what this is bringing in information from is this is bringing information in from your UTM parameters, which I'm not going to dig into a lot, but for instance, if you everybody who's an employee of the university should be getting the bulletin emails, and if you click any of those links, you're going to see this big, long, automated string that this comes from MailChimp. MailChimp likes to add these really ugly strings to your UTM parameters, and that tells you information on Google Analytics that you wouldn't otherwise get because email doesn't pass any information to analytics about where the traffic is coming from. It's kind of an opaque box. So for instance, this social hub thing is a manual tracking code that every time anybody in the social media hub at UComm posts an article, they will add tracking, extra tracking information that will let us see in analytics exactly where the traffic is coming from. So we can see that, you know, of the campaigns that are being manually tracked, this social hub traffic is one of the top drivers of traffic. And then right now we have this Your Wolfpack Story thing, which is an ongoing campaign we're doing to, it's a user-generated content campaign where we're getting people to graduating seniors or people who are graduating in general, like with associate's degrees or advanced degrees, to tell us about you know, their experience at NC State. So we can see that in the past 7 days, we've had about 700 people who have clicked through from our promotion of this Your Wolfpack Story thing. And I happen to know that we've gotten, you know, at this point, I think we've gotten over 50 responses of people who are sharing stories about NC State, and we wouldn't really know where that traffic is coming from if we weren't using these UTM tracking codes. If you haven't questions about UTMs and stuff like that, feel free to reach out to me via email after this presentation. To be quite honest, I'm a little bit sick of talking about UTM stuff because it was something that I was doing for Day of Giving, which has now been postponed. So I guess I'll have to talk about UTM stuff again, which is okay. But I have a whole presentation on UTMs, so we can talk about that later. But anyway, you know, the real time in the audience, the acquisition tabs really give you an idea of, you know, how people are behaving on your website and where they're coming from. Any questions about the acquisition tab? And then I'm going to go over one more thing, and then I'm going to call it a day, if that's okay with everybody.
Alan, Jill was asking if you have suggestions on finding extension-related searches that people might be finding on non-university sites.
Interesting. Okay. Finding extension-related searches that folks are finding on non-NCSU sites. Yes. So that is where, you know, premium SEO tools come in handy. So, for instance, tools like Moz, this is the tool that the paid tool that we use in UComm for SEO analysis. And what Moz does is it kind of scrapes the entire internet, and it allows you to monitor individual search terms, and then you can see how your websites are performing in comparison to your competitors. So I know in North Carolina, our extension offices don't really have competitors because as far as I know, we're the only ones with extension offices. The only university. I could be wrong. I obviously only care about NC State.
NCANT is the other land grant institution, and they are part of cooperative extension with us and the counties.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Thank you. You are a font of knowledge, Ria. Thank you for sharing.
I don't know if that's true, but you're welcome.
Okay. I think it is true. So in order to get information about extension-related services, searches that you know, folks are finding on non-NSSU sites, I would recommend a tool like this. You can also look at just Google Trends. I'm gonna go ahead and switch to, yeah, this is fine. So we can do like, what would be an extension related search? How about, I think this is the one that I used to find, maybe this is what I used to find the Randolph County site a long time ago, who knows? How to prevent squash bugs, because I was having a problem with squash bugs in my garden. And this will show you, you know, some information about what people are searching for. So, you know, it's fairly basic stuff. But then you can really use a tool like Moz to dig into, if you're really trying to corner the squash bug market, for instance, you can set that up as a monitored keyword, and it will show you all of the websites that people are finding through that search term. Does that help answer your question, Joel?
Yeah, it does. I'm thinking of, for instance, a guy called today and asked how long after applying fertilizer can he start feeding his lawn. So his options would be to go to Lowe's Hardware or another sort of competitor to them and be sold something that may or may not work, where I have a horticulture agent who knows the facts and can help guide him towards. So, I mean, it would be hard to throw up an article that quickly, but,
right.
You know, if fertilizer is like the hot topic and we don't have anything on our site about it, I need to fix that.
Right. Yeah, and you might be able to get some useful information out of Google Trends. So like if you search for fertilizer, there's a very noticeable uptick in people who are searching for fertilizer, especially since, you know what, this might actually just be a yearly thing. So let's look at past 5 years. So yeah, you can see that when summertime comes around, more and more people are searching for fertilizer, but especially now. So this is kind of interesting because this makes me think that perhaps with this whole coronavirus thing, there's a lot of people who are at home and taking on home gardening projects. So I absolutely think that your intuition there is correct, which is, fertilizer is a popular topic right now. So maybe it's useful to publish some information about fertilizers so that, to your point, they're not going to Lowe's and talking to somebody who doesn't really know what they're talking about and potentially harming the environment and themselves and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is, Google Trends is really helpful for stuff like this. And you can see, where people are searching for. You can also see related queries, fertilizer, Fallout 4. I think Fallout 4 is a video game. So who knows? I haven't played any of the Fallout games, so I don't really know. Stardew related topics, Stardew Valley. My girlfriend is playing Stardew Valley, and apparently you can farm in Stardew Valley. So maybe farming simulator. This is actually pretty hilarious to me, farming simulator. Anyway, so maybe part of this uptick is actually related to people playing video games and not necessarily gardening. Maybe they were gardening in Fallout. You can farm on Kakarot DBZ. I don't know what Kakarot DBZ is. That Dragon Ball Z? Christian? Okay. Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe people are playing farming-related video games, and then that's why there's more people searching about fertilizer. I don't know. Maybe it would be worth it to publish an article about virtual fertilizer. No idea. Anyway, getting back to it, that all that search stuff is related to how people are actually finding your website. And there's opportunities once you figure out how people are finding your website, you can figure out ways to make your website more useful to more people. And then the final tab that I'm going to go through, and then for those of you who have stuck with me, thank you. I appreciate it. And I will release you after one more thing. This behavior tab is something that is really useful to take a look at. And this just, this gives you an idea of how people are behaving on your website. So some of this information you've seen before, like you've seen the number of users, but then you can look at the number of page views, which is the actual number of times that people look at an individual page. And then this is in comparison to your unique page views. So this tells me that a page was looked at by somebody a unique number of times. So this means that a certain number of pages were viewed multiple times by the same person. But this tells me that 169,000 times one person viewed one particular page on my website. And then 203,000 times one person viewed a page potentially multiple times. And you can see that my audience is spending an average of 2 minutes on the site. And we have something called a bounce rate, which is the percentage of time that somebody comes to your website and doesn't do anything else on your website. They don't click anything. They might spend a few seconds on your page and then leave. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's really up to you to analyze your website. If you have like a crazy high bounce rate, like 95%, that might be an indicator that there's something wrong with your website, where it's not, meeting your users' needs. However, it could also indicate that this is a bit of a conundrum. It can also indicate that your website is doing a really, really good job meeting people's needs. For instance, if I go to weather.com, for instance, and all I want to know is today's temperature, that's right there at the top of weather.com, and I see it, I know the temperature, and I leave without interacting with the website further. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not great for weather.com's business because they advertise on their website, so people are finding their temperature and then immediately leaving. What they really want to do is they want to encourage people to stick around and see more advertisement on the website. So that might not be a very good thing. For us, for ncsu.edu, what this bounce rate suggests to me is that the majority of people are coming to the website and then they're digging in one way or the other. And I think this has to do a lot with search. So every time somebody comes to the website and searches for something, that doesn't count as a bounce because they're doing something on the website, right? If they come to the website and they immediately leave, that's a bounce. Exit rate, I'm kind of blanking on the exact definition of exit rate.
It's the page. It's the rate for the page from which people leave your site, but they have gone to other pages before it, so it's not a bounce.
There you go. Thank you, Ria, very much for that.
I have to keep reminding myself, so that's why.
Yeah, I don't talk about exit rate much because it's not very relevant for a lot of the stuff that we do. But anyway, you can glean some information about how your website is being used. Then there's this behavior flow thing, which is, sometimes useful. What you can do here is you can visualize how people are using your website and what they're doing after they land on a particular page. So if we take this coronavirus thing as an example, you can click view only this segment. And this shows me how people are behaving after they land on /coronavirus. So that's people who are searching for NCSU coronavirus or something along those lines, and they find ncsu.edu/coronavirus here, and then you can really visualize what people are doing. So this red thing, you can see we have 3,400 people who landed on coronavirus, and this is in the past week. And something to consider is that Google Analytics is often showing you a statistical representation of the data based on a sample. So it should always be statistically sound data, but these are not exact numbers that you're looking at. These are estimates based on a sample of how users are behaving, which is fine. We're a university. We do lots of estimates based on a behavior of a sample of data, right? So of the roughly 3,400 people who landed on coronavirus, we can see that 2,300 people just left, which is, once again, that might be fine because that means they found the information that they needed and they immediately left. And then we can see that, roughly 634 of them went on to read the updates that we're publishing. Some went to frequently asked questions. Some people went to the NCSU homepage from the coronavirus page, et cetera, et cetera. So you can just kind of dig into this visualization and see, what people are doing after they land on a page, which is, very important. Any questions about this in particular? Because I think this is a pretty useful thing to look at on analytics.
My only question, Alan, is
Yeah.
if people after this training want to learn more, if they're like intrigued and they want to become Google Analytics experts, where do you suggest that we direct them? Are there resources? Are there people? Are there trainings? Do you suggest people just kind of stumble around themselves?
So
LinkedIn Learning.
yeah, so we have a shout out for LinkedIn Learning. I haven't used LinkedIn Learning, but I'm sure it's helpful.
I love it. It is amazing, folks. Fully searchable. We have a full license. You can get practice files it's in little chunks. So if you have like 4 minutes on the bus, not right now, obviously, but I love it. Use it. It's so good. And their Google Analytics one is fine. I've started going through it.
Yeah. And I also recommend the official Google Analytics certification. If you search for it, Google offers a certificate in Google Analytics that you can do, and then you can print it out or put it on your resume or whatever. But it is a really good, solid introduction to using Google Analytics. Noah has a question, summary of number of clicks within my domain. Yeah, so in order to find that kind of information,
if I could ask, I guess I'm already down to 10th interaction. We list farms, farming opportunities on the website, and just wondered if instead of going to the right on that screen you're showing and clicking +1 or whatever it says, is there a summary that says someone looked at 30 other pages within this domain or 5 other pages within this domain?
okay, yeah, let me see how I would probably go about answering that question. We might find an answer to your question in the events overview. This is a lot of custom setup. So you can do some specific setup to see what kind of links people are clicking on a page. So for instance, we have outbound links set up, which shows us specifically when people search, when people click a link away from ncsu.edu. So this is any traffic. Let's look at event action. Click. And this is okay. Yeah, so for instance, we see that a lot of people are clicking to my pack. And then we can look at the pages view and we can see where people are clicking on information. So for instance, we can dig into coronavirus.
What are you clicking to get all these?
So this is, you go to behavior and then events. And this, you may or may not have events configured on your Google Analytics account.
I've got it.
Sorry?
I do have it.
Okay. So sometimes this isn't set up, but if you have it, you can go to events and then you can go to the pages view, which shows you the pages that have the top number of tracked events going on. So let's see, I lost my...
I gotta jump to it, but this is more for me to do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure thing. All right. So I'll just continue the answer to this question. Then on the coronavirus page, we can look at outbound links. And in a minute, we will be able to see, and then we'll look at the event label. And we can see all of the links that people are clicking on the coronavirus page. So we can see that people are clicking through to EMAS, to the community resources, to the governor's stay-at-home order, so we can actually see what people are clicking on. So I think that kind of wraps it up for the behavior section. So I've talked a lot. Hopefully everybody has found something useful out of this. And really, you know, I don't think we have enough time to cover all the other tools that we use. But really, if you click through the real-time, the audience acquisition behavior, and start playing around, you're going to start getting a good idea for how people are using your website. So I know we've gone way over time, so I'm going to stop talking now. Janine, do you want to maybe wrap it up for us?
So just thanks to Alan. This was super helpful. I'm so glad we have it recorded because we can go back and remind ourselves how we will be able to check into these different things and what the different aspects mean. So thanks to Alan. I'm a virtual hand clap or figurative or whatever. And so, and then I have to, you know, my pitching of the future, I'll send this out. This will be on the employee portal for CALS. And also, as a reminder, May 28th at 10 a.m., Stephanie Davis, who is with University HR, she's a learning and development manager, will be hosting our next CALS Comm workshop Zoom call on generational communications. So thanks everybody for participating. And please, once you receive the survey, give it a few minutes to enter your information.